Well, Elden Ring is finally here, and despite winning several most anticipated Game of the Year awards, it still exceeded many people's expectations, including my own. It's a fantastic title, and it did not disappoint, unlike some other titles, Cyberpunk, and it lives up to the legacy that FromSoft has developed for the past decade. And now we have finally been able to get our hands onto it. By we, I mean me, as I'm making the video. For today's video, however, we're not going to be discussing some of the game and reviewing it, as I do want to do in a future video, but instead I wanted to provide some tips and tricks for newer players. This is something I like to do a lot on my channel, especially for these types of games that are a lot more kind of vague and convoluted in terms of how they represent information and present information to the player. And so I did this for Nioh 2, and I do think Elden Ring deserves a video like this. It's not going to be quite as comprehensive as the Nioh 2 video I did, since the combat is still fairly similar to Dark Souls 3, and there's not a lot of... While there is definitely improvements, there's, very, very much a lot of similarities. So for today's video, instead of kind of going in on a comprehensive thing, I just wanted to give kind of more generalized tips and tricks with a couple of discussion of mechanics, as I do want to go into some of the game's unique features that are different from the past entries. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. This is actually going to be broken up into two kind of sections here. The first section is going to cover mechanics and mostly combat related things, but also a variety of kind of mental things as well, as I wanted to go over kind of some of the mentality as the game is now more open, that kind of differs from past entries where you were kind of banging your head against walls and such. But most of it will be focused on combat. The second portion is going to kind of contain a few spoilers. I'll let you know when that happens, but basically I wanted to showcase a couple of really nice early game things in the world that you can kind of rush to immediately in order to kind of give your new players a leg up. These are going to be very helpful to newer players, as they will give you a little bit more kind of strength for your character without compromising too much of the open world nature. So be on the lookout for that. I will let you know when that happens in case you do want to go 100% blind, but if you do want to get that kind of leg up on the world, you can also check that out. So without further ado, we're going to get to our first point for this video, and that is, as I kind of already spoiled a little bit, don't ram your head in against the wall. As being an open world, or with this being an open world, the game is truly expansive, and if you're finding yourself struggling against a certain boss or certain area, come back later. Feel free to just leave and come back, get some gear, get some new equipment, some new spells, some new whatever it is you might need, and come back later when you're feeling a lot more strength, when your character is a lot stronger, and you're more capable of defeating that enemy. For me, this came in the form of Margaret, one of the first major bosses in the game. I went straight to him as the game kind of directs you to, and I got completely dumpstered. And I was just about to get into that Dark Souls mentality where I'm used to, bashing my head against a boss until I finally beat it, mastering the fight. But then I was like, do I want to do that in my first hour of the game? Not really. I'm going to go see what else the game has to offer and come back to this boss later. And honestly, that was a huge kind of enjoyment for me, was just, hey, I don't have to do this. I don't have to kill this boss to continue enjoying the game. I can come back later. And I urge you to kind of consider that. I know a lot of the community tends to kind of have this very elitist, get good mentality, kind of push them to the side. Those are the vocal minority. They're very loud, but just have fun. This is a game. A game's supposed to be fun. Do it how you like. There's no wrong way to play a game as long as you're having fun doing it. Tip number 2 is to activate the summoning pools. The summoning pools are these little statues here. They kind of have this kind of shape of them, of the hands. They're kind of trying to form the ring emote that you got from the beginning. They kind of start to form a circle, but they don't quite get there. These are the cooperation like statues basically. There's an item in the game that you get pretty much immediately that allows you to kind of send your co-op summon sign to a bunch of these statues in the area. This is basically kind of an expansion on the on the multiplayer features, given the fact that this is a giant open world. I almost said Konami, my stupid Yu-Gi-Oh brain. FromSoft was kind enough to give us these statues so that we don't have to always go to a cave and try to summon at a random cave. Like if someone wants to do co-op in the open world or do co-op randomly in these dungeons, caves, and catacombs that are scattered throughout, they can activate these pools and be able to see the signs there. And if you're looking to be the phantom, the cooperator to coming into those people's worlds, you will need to activate these signs in order to have your sign sent there. So if you haven't activated it and you use the item to send your sign out, your summon sign, everywhere, it won't go anywhere if you haven't activated any of these. So if you're looking to co-op if you're looking to kind of do that do that stuff, you definitely need to be activating these statues. For tip number 3, let's go ahead and talk pretty expansively on a new mechanic / system implemented into Elden Ring, and that is the new kind of poise, stance, and posture system. The posture system is what it was called in Sekiro, and it is very similarly implemented here in Elden Ring. Essentially, every enemy in the game has a posture or a stance. Some people call it poise. I don't like calling it poise because that conflates it with the actual poise system too. There's kind of separate entities there. Poise is how much it needs to take to be staggered by an attack. So if you have a lot of poise, this is most commonly important when it comes to the humanoid enemies, but occasionally for some other enemies. Essentially, if you're using a greatsword, the humanoid enemies are much more likely to stagger from your swing, allowing you to continue comboing into them, whereas if you have a lighter weapon, they won't stagger at all, and you'll have to play it a little differently. The posture system, though, is different from that poise system. This is the Sekiro kind of implementation where there's a hidden meter behind the scenes that we don't get to see, unlike in Sekiro where you did get to see it. Here we do not, and essentially similar to the Sekiro implementation, whenever the posture meter completely fills, the enemy will be knocked down into a vulnerable state. During this vulnerable state, they will be, of course, vulnerable to a critical hit animation. Now, unlike Sekiro, we don't kill them in one hit, but hey, it's that would kind of be overpowered a little bit, so understandable, but it does deal a significant amount of damage. And if you're playing a build that doesn't really take advantage of critical hits, you can also just do more damage with something else. So if you're using a greatsword, maybe your heavy swings might deal a little more damage than going for the critical. If you're a magic user, maybe, while they're vulnerable and on the ground, you can instead go for a huge blast of magic rather than running up and trying to get a riposte or critical hit. That's often a lot stronger for some of those builds. So even if you're not doing a critical hit animation, there's a lot of, good things that you can get out of this staggering system. And so that's why a lot of, it's also called stance by some people, I call it posture. I like using posture. That's what it was called in Sekiro, like I said. And so I like calling it that. Basically, just experiment a lot here with the posture system. There's a lot of nuance here, and it's a very intricate system, a lot more. It may be requiring a single video for itself, given how intricate it can be. I know some other creators have kind of looked into that and worked some of it out. But essentially, the stronger your attack is, the more posture you will deal to the enemy. So jumping R2s, jumping heavies, charged R2s or charged heavies, however you want to call it, those deal significantly more posture damage than the R1 counterparts. And of course, over time, the enemy will recharge their posture. So it kind of encourages you to try and be a little more aggressive, which is a little difficult in some of the fights, but hopefully, if you're doing using a faster build, maybe that's something you can, take advantage of. So don't not hit something without the charged R2s, just because you're trying to get the posture. Doing an R1 does kind of help out because it'll keep the posture from healing because they took some damage. So that's something that you can do. And then basically the higher or the stronger the weapon also, gets calculated here. So the great swords and the colossal weapons are obviously going to be much stronger at dealing posture damage than a dagger or a short sword. And then even some of the weapon arts are a lot more posture related, right? They're not going to deal a lot of damage, but that's because they're going to deal or focus on dealing posture damage and trying to stagger your enemies instead. And so that's kind of something I urge you to experiment a lot with. It is a very rewarding system to kind of figure out and like really nail down, especially when you're doing it on the basic enemies. There's a lot of valuable opportunities for you to really just kind of destroy some of the lower tier enemies. And then kind of along the same category here, I want to talk about number 4, which is using guard counters. Guard counter is a unique, a newly implemented mechanic here in Elden Ring. This has not been something from any of the previous games, to my knowledge. I haven't played Sekiro all the way, or I haven't played Sekiro at all, I should say, but I haven't played Sekiro to know if there was something similar in that game. I know about the posture and stuff like that from watching videos, so I'm able to kind of mention it, but in terms of like some of the more nuance there, I'm not sure if something similar was implemented. But as far as I know, this is a very unique mechanic to Elden Ring, and basically the way that it works is whenever you take a block, if someone hits your shield, immediately after hitting your shield, you can do a guard counter, which allows you to which basically the moment the shield takes a hit, press R2, you'll hear this nice sting, and your character will swing their weapon and do the guard counter. Of course, this is better for some of the faster weapons because you will actually be able to hit your enemy. This is weapon dependent, but basically the way the guard counter works is it does a ton of posture damage. A lot of even the humanoid enemies, even with like kind of weaker swords or whatever, you'll be able to break their posture with a single guard counter. This is very valuable for some of the basic knight enemies. I use this quite a lot. This is also a pretty nice tool to kind of deal with those dumb imp creatures that are scattered throughout all the catacombs. Screw those imps. They're really annoying. They're very frustrating. They're fast. They're nimble. They deal a ton of damage for no reason. So if you're kind of struggling against some of them, you can also use a shield to block and use the guard counter. It will stagger them pretty much immediately. And even if you can't get a critical hit, it'll line up a second hit most likely, so you can probably get that finishing blow. So yeah, I wanted to kind of lump those two together. They're basically in the same posture system. Guard counters do a ton of posture damage. They're very nice. It's a very fun system to kind of mess around with. I know it's kind of annoying that you can't really take advantage of this cool new thing if you're not a shield user. It does require. I mean, you can block with your weapon, but it's not very effective. So you can kind of mess with that how you see fit. But just kind of letting you know that this is a very important. Very powerful tool, I should say. So now tip number 5 is going to be utilizing the Spirit Ashes. The Spirit Ashes are a system of summons that you can either use FP or HP to summon at your side after you have done a couple of starting things to obtain them. The main thing is once you have obtained Torrent, your horse, you can return to the Church of Ella Site of Grace, and you'll see Ronnie sitting right there. She will talk to you a little bit, and she will give you the summoning bell and your first summon, your first spirit summon, which are the wolves. Honestly, these are one of the better ones. It's actually pretty cool. It's really nice that you can finally give the enemy AI, the Dark Souls AI, a taste of their own medicine, teleporting dogs. Holy crap, is it so satisfying to just sick a ton of wolves on everyone and let them feel the wrath of the dogs that have plagued and created so much suffering in the Souls games. I hate dogs so much. They're still annoying in this, but thankfully we can use them against them, which is kind of cool. I think that's a pretty neat little thing that we can do. But basically these are, you get a variety of these. These are a great amount of summons, and I recommend using them. They're pretty powerful. They're really really strong sometimes, and they're really weak other times. You just kind of have to figure out which ones are great for which situations. The dogs do end up getting clobbered by bigger bosses that can just kill all three of them at the same time. But they're also great for taking on a horde of enemies, as you can kind of see a little bit in the footage here. The spirit ashes can only be used in certain areas, so you'll see that with the tombstone icon in the bottom left. That will indicate that you are able to summon whatever it is you are trying to summon. But essentially, besides that restriction, all you need is the FP or HP to cast them. They're pretty cool, and I recommend you experiment with them. It's really fun. I actually want to do a summon build that utilizes the skeletons and do like a death necromancy type thing. That sounds pretty fun. Really cool addition that allows us to diversify some of our role-playing and play styles. Kind of along a similar notion of utilizing the tools the game provides, don't forget to utilize your crafting menu. You'll be obtaining a lot of cookbooks throughout, and they can give you some really powerful tools that can supplement any of your build. You know, if you have the ability to craft some of the bombs, that will be viable regardless of what your stats are. So I highly recommend you give that a shot sometime. It's a really cool system that they've added, allowing for a variety of options, even if you're trying to kind of specialize in something. You know, the strength build, I can craft a fire bomb and still throw some bombs for some fire damage if I need. I can craft an ice bomb and do that. So even if I'm kind of not really speccing into magic to get those different elemental abilities, I can still come over here into the crafting and utilize them. A lot of people, I feel, forget about the crafting menu. You can get a lot of cool things in here, so just kind of make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for what the cookbooks give you and try to experiment with them. Alright, so these last few points are going to revolve around a few like pieces of information that are real quick and nothing really special beyond having that knowledge, and a couple of quality of life things within the menuing and whatnot. And so for the first one, I wanted to quickly mention that the spirit springs that you can use to jump real high, those like wind vortexes with the torrent, those are actually dual purpose. Not only do they give you height, but you can use them if you're on the opposite side. You can use them to do a free damageless fall. So if you're high up on a mountain and you see one below you, go ahead and jump down. You'll see kind of the wind catch around torrent, and that's indicating that your fall will be broken by the wind and you won't take any fall damage or die. That's something that I actually didn't know for quite a while, and it was kind of just when I finally realized it, it was just like head explode, you know, boom, what the, you know, mind blown. I can actually jump down and not have to run around on a bunch of different things. It changed overall navigation a lot for me, so I wanted to kind of relay that information to you guys. The next few points are pretty basic. If you open the world map, this is going to be a quicker way to travel to some sites of grace. You can actually press the Y button in the overworld map, and that will allow you to bring up the menu and navigate through different sites of grace through that menu. If you press X while in this menu, you can go straight to the round table, which is a fantastic quick way to go straight to round table. It's an important section. But also, while you're in this section, you can press R3 down and favorite sites of grace, which you can access again by pressing Y. So basically, if you're hovering over the, let's say, you want to have the Church of Ella site of grace favorited, you can actually highlight over that, press R3, and it'll be favorited, so that next time if you want to go straight to Church of Ella, you can just press Y again and you'll have your favorite list of favorite sites of grace. So that'll be that's something I think is kind of nice knowledge to have, so that if you're looking throughout the world, you can kind of pick a lot of your favorite sites of grace and be able to navigate to them quickly. Another quick menu thing is you can actually sort your inventory by pressing L3. This is something that I honestly didn't know for quite some time, and like an idiot, I was trying to navigate my inventory for 10 whole minutes to find anything new that I had just obtained. So basically, you can While you're in the inventory, press L3. You have a bunch of different criteria. My most used is obviously, like I said, the sort by recently obtained. This will basically make it so that the most recently obtained item in your inventory is at the bottom of the list. So if you catch anything new and you didn't have enough time to kind of get a good look at it, or it's lost in your over-expanding inventory because, just like me, you don't like to use the box, the sorting box at the sites of grace, then that's a great feature, I think, to have, and I really appreciate that there's actually something like this. I was actually kind of complaining that there wasn't something like this, and then I found out later that there was something like this, so, you know, woo. Alright, welcome to the kind of more spoilery section of the game. This isn't going to spoil a ton of crazy things. I don't plan on showing you any of the wild, like, actual, like, cool things. We're just going to have some later stages of the map kind of shown. So I just wanted to let you guys kind of give you that warning still in case you wanted to go in purely blind. I think it's pretty rewarding to do that way. So I do recommend a pure blind playthrough. It's really fun to just run around and find things on your own and have that natural discovery. But if you are kind of looking for a slight power boost for your early character, we're going to show you where you can go. So we're here at the castle, the Gatefront Ruins. This is where you'll find your first map of the game. Maps are also, I didn't mention this, but maps are found by using... I'll put a different clip on. Basically, there's these totems that you'll see on the map before it's revealed, and that will show you where the maps are. So I'll put a little clip here while I'm talking about it. But anyway, you'll get your map here. This will be a big kind of starting point. There's a ruins here with a bunch of enemies, and here's probably one of the early bonfires that will really open the game up for you. So basically, from this bonfire, we're going to go pretty much pure east. By doing so, we will arrive at the Third Church of America. This is going to be a pretty important church for us to find, so I highly recommend if you come this way. You can see on the map here, if you just follow the road, we'll be able to go here. So I'm actually going to do that. Apologies for some of the little frame drops, graphical errors. But anyway, I'm going to speed this part up. We'll run to that church, and that way you can kind of see it in action. All right, so here we are. Basically, as you kind of would expect, just ignore all of the enemies. You can easily just rest at the bonfire and reset the aggro. Here underneath the statue, you'll find a sacred tear, which is a pretty nice item. And over here, you'll find the best item, or one of the best items in the game, and that is the physics flask. Or flask of physic. So basically the physic flask, flask of wondrous physic, is a pretty cool item. I actually really like this addition to the game. It is a single use flask that gives you a variety of buffs based on how you kind of craft the actual flask itself. Once you obtain it, you will get 2 crystalline tears, and basically what that'll let you do is you can go to any bonfire, and then you can go to mix wondrous physic, and this will allow you to craft 2 kind of special effects. So for example, this one allows me to enhance my charge attacks, and this one significantly negates damage for a one-time effect. And you can see, I think you get these 2, or you get this one and maybe this one or something. I forget which ones you get here. But basically this will be a one-time flask use, and it will give you those buffs for a pretty decent duration. And basically, the way that it works is once you drink it, you'll see the buffs, and it's pretty useful. Really powerful tool. It'll help you. This is where you get it. I recommend picking this up relatively quickly because it is a pretty nice item to have in the game. And then whenever you get those tiers, whenever you actually pick up the different crystal tiers and whatnot, you'll actually be able to use them, you'll actually be able to use them. So this is where you get it. It's really good. And I'm actually going to show you in a little bit where you can get the tier that does this shield effect. So I'll show you that when I get to it. For now, I'm going to show you another section of the map, and that is going to be all the way over here in the south. This region right here. You can see it is actually not too bad to come to. You just kind of follow this pathway here, and you can kind of cross this pathway, cross this bridge, and then make your way over into this direction. I recommend coming over here for two reasons. There's two churches here, and both of these churches will provide you another sacred tier. So what is the sacred tier, you ask? Well, it is how you upgrade your flask. So I have to go into my menu. Oops. I have a new controller messing up the buttons. So you see my flasks are at +4. That is because I used 4 sacred tiers to upgrade them, and it increases the amount that they heal you. So I do recommend picking these 3 up. I don't remember where I got my 4th one, if I'm being honest. I was just exploring randomly. But this is a quick way to get a +3 flask, which will, for the most part, throughout your early game, it will permanently heal you to full for at least a good section of the game, and I do recommend picking them up. So now I'm going to do another walk section to kind of show you how to actually get through there on the map. Of course, this will be sped up in post-editing. So this is the map, or this is where it looks like. It's literally directly south to the starting Grace, so I do recommend coming down here. There's also a couple of other things I'm going to point out as well, but the most important ones are, of course, those sacred tiers. So yep, I'm going to speed up some of the gameplay and whatnot, so let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so here is the first Church of Pilgrimage. Once you get here, it's actually pretty easy to kind of navigate the rest of it. I don't remember where the map was. It might be along the way, but I'll show you a little. I just kind of wanted to show you some of the landscape as you approached it. I obviously messed up a little bit, had to recheck my map, so just cut me some slack. You can see the other church is actually literally straight ahead. This is all flat plains. There's also a turtle dude thing there. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next church. In that church that I just was at, there is a sacred tier. And I do recommend you go collect all of the sacred tiers. that you can early on. These are real quick sacred tears to obtain. They're literally right next to each other. There's no super crazy thing kind of blocking your way. So I do recommend, if you are kind of looking to improve your healing a bit, this is a fast way to do so, and it's relatively close by. I mean, you have to run a decent amount. And there are some enemies. Just ignore them. They're going to charge at you with their sword, but the moment you rest at the bonfire, or the grace, I mean, they'll just go away. So here's the second one, and there are going to be a sacred tear here. And then from here, we're actually going to find a couple of other items. So we're actually going to start going down onto the beach side. Don't take that fall. I'm pretty sure it's lethal. I could have checked it just to showcase the raid things in action, but I already did some footage of that. So we're gonna run over here real quick to this shack. This is another nice little shack here. There is some goodies at the shack, and that is going to kind of wrap up most of the things I wanted to talk about. So this guy here actually has some really nice things at his shop, and there's a nice there's also a nice grace here to kind of give you an easy access to the shop. So if you ever need that kind of thing, so purchase. There are a few things here. Stone sword keys. These are really important things to unlock various things throughout the map. He also has the Zweihander. If you're a strength build, I recommend picking this up. You can see I'm already using it. This is where I got it. And then, of course, the lantern is also here. This is a very nice kind of tool to pick up. It's a one-time purchase, and it will help you throughout many of your caves. I'm actually going to pick up these now so I don't forget. And basically, the way that the lantern works is, instead of having a torch on your offhand weapon, you can literally go into your inventory and hit use, and it will put a lantern on your belt, so you no longer have to worry about having your offhand be a torch or whatnot. So this is a pretty nice, I think this is a pretty nice pickup. I'll show a few clips of the lantern in action over top of some of this discussion and towards the end of the video, so you can see that it is a pretty nice thing to have in a lot of the caves. And if you're finding yourself not really too worried about having you don't really need the torch. Some of the torches are pretty nice. They can do other things, but of course it does sacrifice your shield or your talisman or whatever thing that you might be using on your offhand. So this is a pretty nice way. Or if you just want to two-hand your sword, and this helps you be able to two-hand it. I'm not sure if you can actually do that with a torch or not. I haven't tested it, so 80 hours into the game and haven't even tried to test that, so oh well. Either way, I think the lantern's been my go-to way to light my way, so I wanted to show you guys where it was. Anyway, that's going to go ahead and wrap up today's video. I don't really have too much of anything else that I really want to talk about. I pretty much covered everything that I think I needed to for a beginner's video. Anything else, if you have any questions, feel free to go down below in the comments and ask away. I'll answer any of them to the best of my ability. There's still some things that I'm slightly don't know about, but I'll answer anything that I can, and I will also be, if you have anything that's, requires more in-depth and such, there's already a ton of content creators out there for like a variety of other tutorials, especially rune farming. There's so many rune farming videos, so I'm sure you can find your way through all of those. If you have any, again, I'll still answer any questions you have if you do have those. And if you have any particular video you want to see from my channel, if you want to see like a particular tutorial or guide or whatever in my particular style, then feel free to let me know. I'll see if I can work on that video. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the rest of this up here. Subscribe, bell notification if you want to see more content from the channel. I do variety gaming and Yu-Gi-Oh, so if that interests you, feel free to check those out and hit those buttons to see more videos. And then of course, if you found this video interesting, found this video educational and such, please hit that like button. Helps everything out, or helps the channel and the video through the algorithm, and it really means a lot to me, so I would greatly appreciate that. All the YouTube stuff's out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and sign off of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.